Miller's Edge
with 4-time SEC champion
and 2-time national champion Christian Miller.
Once again with Christian Miller taking him down.
Here's college football playoff national champion
Christian Miller
on Tide 100.9
and 12:30 a.m. WTBC.
And welcome into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Hope everybody is doing well, as is. Let's see if we can figure out my words. Sorry. Been trying to get everything all ready and set to go. I'm really excited. If you guys hang out and join us on the streams, you guys will see why. I mentioned yesterday, I teased a little bit, hey man, we got some exciting stuff planned for you guys in terms of, some updates, some upgrades, and came a little bit earlier than expected. So if you guys are hanging out on stream, you can see what I'm talking about. We got a whole new setup going right here. Now, the backdrop and stuff, we're still going to be working on that in the meantime. That's the next step. But for now, which is probably the most important, man, our whole new camera is finally set up and ready to go. Came earlier, and I was able to kind of get some things going ahead of time. But hope you guys enjoy it, though. I mean, if you like watch me, you can see me in like 4K now, literally probably every crevice on my beard, my skin, everything, man. It's just very cool, but really excited about that. And that's a big thanks to all you guys, man. I tell you, all the support that we get, man, goes right back into the show. We're going to keep making it bigger and better, and that's exactly what we're doing. So I'm thrilled to have been able to do it a little bit earlier than expected. So I just wanted to mention that. In terms of what we'll dive into today on Talking Tuesday, well, number one, we will be joined by Clint Lamb at the top of the hour, like we do every Talking Tuesday. We'll get his thoughts on a number of things, a few updates regarding the football team that we'll discuss with them. And then the big thing that I do want to talk about, well, not only with Clint, but with you guys as well, is as, the offseason continues, there's going to be plenty of folks talking and giving their thoughts on programs, ranking programs, stock up, stock down, ranking rosters, all that good stuff, right? It's part of the offseason. Well, Joel Klatt, our great friend Joel Klatt, who is a big SEC guy, loves Alabama, totally being sarcastic here. He gave his thoughts on a number of teams that he felt are rising in stock, some teams that are losing some stock. And as you can probably see from the title on the streams here on YouTube, but also Facebook at Tide 100.9, at the Miller's Edge on YouTube, he definitely didn't have the most stock in Alabama, not to spoil it, just to kind of give a quick little, update. But anyway, that said, we'll talk a little bit about that because he had some interesting thoughts, and I definitely want to dive into what he said. I'll play the clip. It's about a minute and a half, and we'll break it down. I'm sure you guys will also have plenty of thoughts as well. Plus, a couple other little news and updates. Alabama continues to add to their staff, this time not coaches, right? A little bit different. Some front office folks, which makes total sense if you think about it. And you talk about the guys that have left, whether it was, assistant, general managers, I think Aaron Hodges, I can't remember what his role was. There's been a number of guys and ladies also move on to other opportunities. So there's been some spaces and some holes that needed to be filled, and Alabama has done that. We'll discuss some of those names. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can have too much information on the new hires, but we'll at least point it out and bring it to you guys' attention. We can talk about that a little bit as well. I do want to tell you guys, on a Talking Tuesday, we always encourage you guys to get in on the conversation. We let you guys take the role of co-host. 205-342-9904 is the way you can do that on the phone lines, or you can always join us on the streams, whether that's at the Miller's Edge on YouTube or Tide 100.9. We stream there as well. You can leave your questions, comments, and concerns in the chat section, and we'll be able to discuss that. Plus, you always can interact with all the other folks in the chat, which is always fun. And yesterday I was getting flamed a little bit, so you never know where the chat section can go. Want to remind you also about our friends over at R&R Cigars. If you guys are in the market for those premium cigars, the best humidor in the Southeast, look no further than R&R Cigars. Don't forget that code Miller's Edge on their website, rnrcigars.com, is exactly for you guys, listeners of the show. Get you 20% off. Plus, if your order qualifies, you can also get free shipping, which is great. I know we got a lot of listeners all over the place. So take advantage of that code Miller's Edge on their website, rnrcigars.com. But if you're local, you just need a place to go hang out, kick back, enjoy a nice stick, over 160 bourbons, make sure you guys check out R&R Cigars, 2703 Gary Fitz Street, the big mansion on the corner downtown. You can't miss it. Great place to hang out, talk sports, watch sports, and just have a good time. Again, that is R&R Cigars, the official cigar provider of Alabama football since 2014. All right, we got to hit a timeout. first one of the day. When we come back, we'll keep on rolling. We'll start talking a little bit about some of the talk that's going around college football regarding Alabama football and more. And we'll keep rolling from there right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
The Tuscaloosa Thread News Update.
What's up, guys? Mic is out. Oh, God. All right, let me, so we got the picture quality is perfect. Let me make sure the mic settings are good. That shouldn't be the case. Let's see. I was a little rushed trying to get all this set up. I thought I had it set up last night, and then I ended up, I don't know what happened. I had to literally redo it all right before I jumped on here. Let's see. I wonder why. Oh, it's using the camera mic. All right. That should be much clearer, because that was the other thing that I went and legit like fine-tune all the settings on the mic too, because I realized I've been listening to it. I'm like, man, the mic doesn't sound as good as it normally does. And so I downloaded the software, and I've been messing with that. The goal was I was going to show up here and it was going to be just fire. But hey, what's the difference? Hold on. That should be better. That should be using my my regular mic now. So much better. Yeah, it was using the camera mic. I wonder how it sounded from far away though. But hopefully, listen, you guys should know a difference in quality. All right, there we go. Appreciate that, Joey. Joey, I think Joey works with some of this stuff, man. He knows a lot about it. So I don't know. Joey, you need to just remotely kind of handle all of our technical stuff. Sounds great. All right, perfect. Yeah, because I fine-tuned the mic settings, still wanting to replace the mic. But in the meantime, we replaced the camera production, and it should be like night and day difference. No jokes today. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just too, listen, I'm so focused on making sure the new setup is running good. Hopefully, like I said, we don't run any issues. Hopefully the camera and everything is good to go. Worst case, we'll switch back to the webcam for a little bit if we have to later on. But we're gonna be vibing, man. It's Talking Tuesday. Yeah, listen, y'all are good, man. Get the jokes ready. That's fine. I can take them. Guys. Who we having here? We got Phil. What's up? Yakenji, Joey, Jake. What's up? Did I say Jeremy? I can't remember. If I didn't, Jeremy, what's up? New lid? Yeah, man. It's not for the Gamecocks. It's not anything vulgar, weird, man. I don't know if you guys have seen this brand, but my best friend Jamie was getting rid of them. He had a few of them, so I was like, oh, I'll take them. But there's like a bunch of different like animals and stuff. It's kind of like the patch hats with. It's like I can't remember. It was popular probably a couple years ago. But I figured, golly, guys, I'm sorry. Figured my dad would like this one. Maybe I'll gift it to him at some point. I appreciate you guys giving me the updates though, because I would have had no idea. Because in my audio, everything sounds the same. As long as this is on, this is what I hear. So I had no idea I was using the camera mic. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Joey. Because I would have been mad because I literally spent like 30 minutes trying to tune the audio. Goodness gracious, man. I can't catch a break. Where should we start, guys? Should we start with this Joe Klatt stuff like off rip? I know we're going to talk about it with Clint. I don't know. We'll see the wind blows. We got to bring up these new hires first. We'll roll from there. Or if there's anything I'm missing, please let me know in the chat. I know sometimes there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I don't get to see everything. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. A couple little updates now that I'm thinking about it. By the way, big shout out to my guy Levi Wallace, who joined us yesterday on the show. If you guys missed it, it was a really cool interview. We got to go back, talk about his story, how he ended up here. We all know that he, walked on here at the University of Alabama, ended up earning a starting role, went on to play 7-8 years in the National Football League. But I don't think many people knew that he started off on the intramural fields, because I definitely didn't know that. And I've been, great friends with Levi for years, right? I mean, over 10 years. this dude never told me that. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. If you guys missed it, you can always go back and listen to it on yesterday's episode, yesterday's show, whether it's on our YouTube channel, anywhere you get your podcast, all that good stuff. Started off about 30 minutes into the show, so that way you can fast forward. I know there's some people on our YouTube channel, they forget or they don't know that we are a radio show, right? I mean, we're a radio show kind of first and foremost, that we stream and do, content on our YouTube channel and other, social media platforms. So sometimes like, oh man, you talk too much, get to the point. I'm like, well, we kind of have to have an intro. We got commercial breaks. I mean, it's a show, right? But you guys can always skip ahead, and I'm not mad at you for doing that. I don't blame you. Just a reminder for anybody that joins us on YouTube and doesn't realize that. A couple other things to hit real quick. Line up some more interviews. You guys love them. I got them coming. Friday, right? Everything should be good to go. Now, if something comes up and changes, I'll let you guys know. But as of now, we will have another player interview on Friday. This time coming from another former teammate of mine, a guy that just played in the Super Bowl just a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, he was on the losing team. He's with the Patriots, but he still had a hell of a game. Great player, great person. He's a dog. You guys talk about dogs and wanted to feel that energy. Oh, you'll feel it, man. My guy Anthony Jennings is going to join us on Friday around noon, and we'll chop it up with him, talk about his season this past year, playing in the Super Bowl, that experience, and then get his thoughts on Alabama. Because I got a question I really want to ask him, because Anthony is a very vocal guy. He's a leader. Has always been like that. He was like that when he was here in Tuscaloosa. Was my counterpart. We both played outside backer, Sam and Jack. So we've been really close, man, for years. But I want to ask him, if he could give, and obviously I'm saving this, he's got to answer when he comes on here, but if he could come to this locker room and give them some type of message of motivation, what would it be like? What would you say to this team that, I feel like we're talking about that. What they kind of need is that life, somebody to breathe some of that life, that dog mentality to him. He's a perfect guy. So I'm gonna see if he'll do a little bit of that on the show Friday. So we got that planned Friday. Like I told you guys, we got Clint at the top of the hour today. Wednesday, tomorrow, should be getting, I'm gonna get Slade to jump back on here. Thursday, we got Brandon Clear and our guy Adam from Lamparello Law. We'll be chopping it up with him. And then, like I mentioned, we got Anthony on Friday. So we got a fun week planned. And as we keep winding down the days until spring football, because that's, I think, about 3 weeks now, Chase. 3 weeks out. It's right around the corner. So once that gets here, man, we'll have plenty to talk about, plenty of clips. Granted, individual clips, they're not full practices, but we can at least kind of get our sights on some of the guys, new faces, which I'm really excited to see, get out there, get to work, and see kind of where everybody falls into place. I also reached out, by the way, to Nick Gentry yesterday. I saw he had responded to Marquise's Mays tweet about, scouting and being able to really, evaluate players. So I want to talk to him about that. Plus, I saw that he has some connections with the new tight end coach. And so I would love to get his thoughts on him for you guys as well. So I think he said he should be good to go Thursday, so we'll try to squeeze him in on Thursday as well, even though we're pretty filled up that day, but we'll try to make it work because we'd definitely love to do that. All right, all that out the way. Finally, we could talk about some of these new hires. Alabama made some new hires. Again, not coaches. That is pretty much filled. Maybe some assistants you could hire, I guess, but maybe have some openings there. But the latest hires for Alabama, you've got a new analyst, Brad Aoki. I tried to do a little research for you guys. I don't know too much about him. He's from Southern Cal. I want to say he was a walk-on at Southern Cal, and he ended up converting himself to an analyst. He's been working with the quarterbacks, so I'd imagine that's going to be his role here. If you go to his Twitter bio, that's what it reads. He's an analyst, but specifically worked with the quarterbacks. Obviously, I think USC is known to have some good quarterbacks, and could be a nice addition to work with some of our guys like Keelan Russell and some of the other players. That even the young guys too would be great, but also Austin Mack, as those two are the primary options to compete for the starting role this upcoming season. They also promoted a couple interns to analysts, Dylan Morris, Luke Cameron, and Corey Luciano. And then we also made 2 hires to what I call the front office staff. Now everything operates kind of like the NFL. You have a GM, you have a bunch of people in these roles. One being Georgia Tech's former executive director of recruiting, Alex Mathis. Allegedly, he has a lot of ties to the Peach State, which we know is a big hotbed for recruiting for Alabama, especially you talk about Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, all being big places with a lot of talent. We get a lot of players from those areas. Why not get a guy with deep ties to Georgia? Typically works out well, and he's been over at Georgia Tech for a number of years, so he will be he's expected to be hired here. I'm sure it'll be made official soon. And then the other is Stephen Weiss, who has spent the last 5 years or so working as a scout with the Arizona Cardinals. He's making his way to Tuscaloosa as well. So as you guys can see, there's still some things going on behind the scenes, trying to get some more faces in here. And so far, I think the good news is if you look at some of the folks that this new staff has brought in, especially in these roles, whether you call it front office roles, support roles, I'm not sure the correct title, but you look at Sanders and some of the other recruiting folks that they've hired and brought on staff here, they've done a phenomenal job. So I guess without me knowing a whole bunch about these individuals themselves, I can just say so far they've done really good at the hires that they made to help out with recruiting. So I'd imagine it should be the same with these folks. So just wanted to hit some of those updates for you guys as they kind of roll in. Again, I wish I had more info or things I could offer, but probably only know as much as you guys. But again, we had roles that we had to replace with a number of folks leaving and moving on to other opportunities. So this is all that is, not like they're firing people, getting rid of people. It's just you got to replace people as they leave. And this is exactly just that. All right. That said, Chase, let's do this. Let's go ahead and hit our timeout that we're scheduled for. When we come back, we'll dive into the main thing I wanted to focus on today. A couple other things we'll hit, but I want to talk about this Joel Klatt clip that had come out. Minute and a half clip. We'll listen to it. We'll respond and react to it. I'm sure you've heard it, but we'll listen to it together here on the show. And then the top of the hour, I definitely want to get Clint's thoughts on as well, because I want to say that he responded to it and had a number of things to say. But we'll do that when we come back after this quick timeout right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Don't go anywhere. Quick timeout. We'll be right back.
At Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa, luxury may be closer than you think. Right here.
All right. Klatt's comments equals preseason jibber jabber. Yeah, one thing I learned, man, I guess I should have known this, but you guys hate Joel Klatt. That was one thing I noticed. I was like, damn. Alabama fans hate this dude. Hate's a strong word, but it's probably strongly disliked. Maybe that's a little bit better. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys hit that like button. If you guys enjoy the new quality camera setup, man, I'm looking at. I just went over to YouTube real quick to look at it from the site side of things, man. Looks good, man. Looks good. Definitely probably need to work a little bit with some of this lighting, but damn, man, that's night and day's difference. You guys, let me just make sure you guys remember what it looked like with our old camera. So all you guys that have been super chatting, especially Adam, man. I mean, literally, I told you guys everything that you guys support gets thrown back into the show. So we went big with the camera. Now, granted, I do need to fix some of the lighting stuff, so keep that in mind. But this is, let me show you the screen from yesterday, or the camera from yesterday, just how it looks. Let's see. So that was yesterday's show. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. Love it, though. Jay Smith, what's up? Quality's great, bro. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, y'all thank Adam and all the other folks that have been super chatting. Like I said, man, we're gonna keep making it bigger and better. And yeah, we're not stopping here. Mic should sound better. Let me see how it sounds. Oh man, mic quality is so much better. I should have been fixed those settings. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're in the game now, folks. Sorry, I know that's probably cringe. I'm just excited, man. Hey, can I be excited? I'm just excited, man. We're moving on up. It's a mutual thing. He hates us too. New setup looks up. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jake. You think he hates us? Y'all think he hates Alabama? Joe Klatt hates Alabama. I don't know if I would say he hates Alabama. Chase, I appreciate you, bro. Reed taking over. Good deal. Appreciate you guys, man. Be safe, bro. As long as you got a good run game balance, O-line and D-line, we're in a great position. Yeah, only thing is when you say that, as long as we have, you name like 3 things, right? So, I mean, to be fair, I mean, it can't argue that Alabama does have question marks. I'll never argue that. See if I close that. That's better. Wait, yeah, that's actually better closed. All right, bet. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and listen to. Yeah, we'll get it pulled up. Clint already has listened to it, so I don't need to play it when he comes back on here. All right, here we go. I think we're coming back. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. All right, here we go. All right, let's talk about it. Joel Klatt, famous college football analyst. You guys know Joel Klatt. Might not be a fan of his, but, everybody knows Joel Klatt. Calls games for the Big Ten. Always offering his opinion on the Joel Klatt show. Can't say I listen to it often, but I definitely, I catch the clips that come up. And, you know me, guys. I respect everybody's opinion, and even though if it's different or if it's not necessarily something I agree with, but, we always at least offer them the chance to say what they want to say and offer them the floor. So let's do just that. Let's hear from Joel Klatt, who gave his thoughts on Alabama. Not just Alabama, but he was talking about, schools and programs that he feels like have stock up or stock down. And this is what he had to say regarding Alabama.
Have quickly descended into a place that when I think about their conference, I don't think about them initially, and I don't even think about them in the top three. When I think about the SEC, I immediately think of Georgia and Texas. And oh, by the way, Alabama. Alabama is my stock down team. The reality is that they are coming off back-to-back 4-loss years, that the best part of their team last year was Ty Simpson, by a wide margin, by the way, and they're losing Ty Simpson. I don't love what's going on down there. They were blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship game. They were blown out by Indiana. And it wasn't just that Indiana had a great day. No. Indiana did whatever they wanted to do. They ran the ball 50 times straight at Alabama. This is not the Alabama of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and certainly not 10 years ago. So they have been trending down. And that trend, I think, is going to continue. They've got to figure out their quarterback for next year. Is it going to be Austin Mack or Keelan Russell? 0 starts between them in an era in which experience is everything that you need at that position. They're losing starters out there. Isaiah Horton, he's gone. Wilkin Formby, the guard, he's gone. I don't see this team turning it around. Like I said, I think about the SEC. I think about Georgia and Texas.
So there you go. That was Joel Klatt on his podcast offering his thoughts on why he believes Alabama stock is down. Here's the thing that, you got to try to decipher. At least this is what I think about, Reed, as you take over behind the glass. So when we're talking stock down, I think we're just only talking for this 2026 season, because I know I saw some of the responses from some of our fans, and then they start talking about like championships we've won and stuff like that. I don't think he's going that far. I don't think he's saying as a program, so to speak. And I know there's been other comments where people say, "Oh, Texas has the better program," stuff like that. I don't even think clearly it doesn't make sense for somebody to say that from a actual standpoint of like history and everything they've done. I think people are just mentioning like right now in the current state. So I want to start there because I want to make sure we're clear on that. And I think that's what he's going at. And we'll base it off of that. So read a couple of things that he mentioned. He mentioned some of the showings last season, Indiana game specifically, the Georgia game, the SEC championship, 2 games that we've talked about here on this show that, look, were bad looks for Alabama, right? I mean, you might not like the guy, but he's not wrong. Those were bad performances on our part. We all can agree that, right? Even the people that are mad that he says it, we can all agree that when we watched it, we all felt the same way. That's just not how Alabama should be showing up and playing football. So I'm not mad at him with that. He mentioned when he thinks of the SEC, he thinks Texas and Georgia, okay, then Alabama. I mean, he skipped over Ole Miss, who had, they've had a bunch of 11-win seasons. They made a deep run in the college football playoffs this past season. They've been a good program. But anyway, he said, all right, Georgia, Texas, which a lot of people, especially on the outside, I mean, that's a common trend. A lot of people think of Texas, they think of Georgia. And I know people immediately go, well, Georgia hasn't won a playoff game since 2023, but they also have won, 2 national championships in the past I guess it'd be, 5 years now or so, something like that. So, I mean, I get the whole thing about they haven't won a playoff game since 23, but if you've won 2 national championships in the last 5/6 years, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. Now, Texas, this is where I can start to say, I feel like there's a common trend here. I know Digger's going to line up on the phone lines and give his thoughts, which I always encourage. I love Digger, man. I know you guys can't stand his voice, but I enjoy Digger. He's funny. But Texas, to me, now I'm not going to completely downplay Texas like they're just nothing. But I will say I do feel like they are one of the more overhyped teams in, the current state of college football. And the reason I say that is, I mean, I feel like year in and year out, they're always going to have, and this isn't really up for debate. I think it's pretty true. They're always going to have a top 5 roster in college football, right? We know how much they invest. We learn firsthand with Hollywood Smothers and others. They're going to have really good football players. They're always going to be predicted to be at least one of the top teams in the SEC, if not pick the top team by the end of the year. Very often that they're picked to be national champions by the end of the year. But my thing is with them, I feel like they fall short of expectations more so than not. Not to take away from them, because they are a good program. I'm not going to be one of these people that makes it seem like, oh, well, just because they haven't necessarily, won as much, they're a bad No, they're a good program. I like Sarkisian. I think they've got really good players. I know that, a few years ago they made it to semifinals, stuff like that. I mean, like, they've had success in their own right, but I don't know. To me, if you really compare what Alabama did last year compared to what Texas has kind of done over the last few years, really it wasn't that far off. It really just depends on how you view it. Because Alabama made it to the SEC championship game, which, that's a big deal in its own. Alabama made it to the college football playoffs, at least won the first round game. We did get our butts whooped in the second round. But still, I mean, if you stack that up with what Texas has done pretty much consistently, I feel like it's not far off. I feel like that's about Texas's ceiling, right? Unless you're going back to them being in the semifinal before they extended the playoffs. That said, listen, I mean, when he mentions some names here, I get people, and I'll get to this in a second. I don't want to jump too far ahead. But somehow, like the losses and things like that, I actually agree that, there are a lot of question marks. I don't agree with everything he's saying. I don't agree with the sentiment that it's just as if Ty Simpson, let's address that part. He said Ty Simpson was basically everything for Alabama last year. Again, love Ty, fan of Ty's. I mean, he's going to jump on the show here soon when he gets some free time. But to say that Ty was like the whole team last year, I feel like that was number one, it was wrong. But two, it's either he hasn't watched closely enough or consistently enough. And listen, I know he calls a lot of Big Ten games. Just like I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't watch Big Ten football nearly as consistently as I do with the SEC. And it kind of, this whole take was kind of giving that feeling that he hasn't necessarily really tuned in to many Alabama games, because it's almost like he watched the SEC championship game that we lost in, the Indiana game, but probably hadn't watched much in between. Now, he was a big fan of Ty's throughout the year, so I know he at least saw some action, at least on Ty's part. But to me, to say Ty was like the biggest thing we had going, again, no disrespect to Ty whatsoever. I want to be clear. This is not that. Ty played some really good football, especially earlier on in the middle part of the year. We had a little bit of a slump towards the end. He was fighting injuries, a lot of stuff not going in his favor, lack of running game. I mean, that doesn't help. We've already discussed all that. That said, I mean, there still were a number. I mean, the defense, I thought, especially in the latter half of the season, in my opinion, the defense was kind of like the saving grace. The defense, with all the stops that they were given, and I'll be the first one to tell you, you guys know me. I'm a defensive guy, and I'm honest. Defense still not perfect. I know we have good numbers, but there's still a lot that needs to be fixed. That said, they kept us in a lot of games, and not that we're going to necessarily lose games, but the fact that they held teams to field goals when they had their backs against the wall or were put in bad positions due to the losing the field position battle, that was huge. And really, I would argue, I mean, Ty was kind of underperforming on the latter half of the season, and that should have been an easy cue to see, all right, Alabama was still able to win football games. Why are they able to win those games if the quarterback play isn't as good as it was earlier on? So, I mean, it's kind of obvious if you just watch the games that there was other things going on, other bright spots. I mean, Ryan Williams, you expected to be the guy. He struggled, but I would argue earlier on, I mean, the receiver core, that featured Jeremy Bernard, he was hot for a while. Then Isaiah Horton stepped up. Then later on in the year, Latsier Brooks. I mean, I get the quarterbacks making the throws, but those guys themselves made a lot of plays. I mean, I don't know. So that part I was a little confused with, Reed, if I'm being honest with you, because he's right here. You see it on the text. He says by a wide margin. I mean, I got to dispute that one. Again, love Ty Simpson, but I can't say that by a wide margin he was like the only thing we had going. And then last but not least, I know he mentioned some of the guys that we do have to replace in terms of some of the guys like James Smith and Quay Russaw. He mentioned Wilkin Formby, and I know a lot of Bama fans were kind of like laughing and saying, "Oh well, those guys aren't nothing. That's nothing to replace those guys." And the only thing I'll say is I'll give some pushback. You guys know how I am. Like, don't get caught up in just numbers, right? Because I'm telling you right now, if I had to put money on it, Quay Russaw and James Smith are probably going to go have great years at Ohio State. I would be willing to put a little money on it that I feel that confident. Like those, they might not have lived up to their full expectations here in Tuscaloosa for whatever reason. But I'm telling you right now, those guys have a lot of NFL potential. James Smith, especially Quay Russaw, he got injured. I know it's easy to say that, yes, Yonze stepped up. Oh, that shows he's replaceable. Nobody said that these guys aren't replaceable. But when you lose that, like you could have had Yonze and Justin Hill and Quay Russaw. Like you want that, right? You shouldn't celebrate losing the guy just because, Yonze's just, nah, man, like both those guys having that group of three, I mean, that does wonders for a defense. James Smith, you can kind of joke about maybe the potential or not the potential, but the production wasn't fully there. But if you guys actually know ball and you can watch this dude, I mean, there's a reason that dude was highly touted coming out of high school. I remember watching him coming out of high school. That dude has a lot of untapped potential, right? And don't forget, before Quay got hurt, everybody was raving about how good he looked in camp, including myself. This dude was the most explosive player on the team. And I'm not going to go too far on this. I'm just telling you guys, don't be the fans that just because a player decides to leave, we start clowning them and then saying, oh, they weren't good. We didn't need. Don't do that. Because, guys, that's not the case, right? I mean, don't go off. If you're going off potential, then compare the potential of the guys that also came in. Because it lines up, right? So if you're going to clown our guys that left, clown the people too. Like, you just got to hold that standard. Anyway, all that to be said, I clearly don't agree with what Joe Klatt said. I wouldn't agree with nearly all. First of all, I disagree with nearly all of it. There's a couple things I will say I can understand. But let's just answer the final question. Is Alabama stock down in 2026? That's the biggest question here. I'll say like this. It depends on how you view it. Because if you view it from what Alabama did in year one, going 9-3, right, losing to Michigan in the bowl game. Year two, making the SEC championship game, going 10-2 in the regular season. There's an improvement there. Making the college football playoffs, beating Oklahoma on the road in the first round, right? You get your tail whooped by Indiana, but to be fair, they at least went on to be 16-0 undefeated champs. Not making an excuse. I'm just including all the details because that is a fact. It's not. It's I'm not saying it makes it better, but at least it's a team that also went and dominated a really good Oregon football team with the quarterback that was supposed to be the number 2 quarterback taken in the draft and a lot of other good players. So for what that's worth. And then last but not least, I wanted to point this out though, because we've talked about on this show and a lot of our listeners have also agreed that with the youth that we have, with, like he mentioned, you don't have a true starter at quarterback. There's a quarterback battle, or I should say a returning starter with experience. A lot of things he listed is what I'm getting at is things that we've mentioned on this show. Because you guys know on our show, we love Alabama. I'm a former player, all that good stuff. But we like to be objective and call it even down the middle. A lot of the concerns that he mentioned, I've also mentioned that are definitely, they're for sure question marks. So if you look at it from the angle that, even we've said this, there's a chance that this season you might take a step back, looks and feels a little bit like a 9-3 season. Technically, we're being honest, that means stock down. That doesn't mean, everything's, the sky's falling. It's this big drop off. No, but to be fair,
that's technically the definition of that. A lot of people even agree that there's a chance 2026 could be a little bit of a step back for Alabama with all the youth and all the new faces and the question marks, and maybe 2027 being a little bit more of a year where some of those guys are older, more developed, and they make a little bit more of a run. Not saying that that's going to happen, not saying I can predict the future, just saying based off of what we know now, it has a little bit of that feel to it. So I guess what I'm saying, Reed, is if we're being honest with ourselves and we're going off of everything that, at least what I've been talking about on this show over the last few weeks about my questions for this Alabama football team, technically can't say that he's wrong with what he's saying if you line it up with what I've said. However, I feel like the way he presents it is as if like Alabama, the way he says, I think Georgia, Texas, then Alabama, that's the biggest problem I have. Because you kind of discrediting the fact that Alabama made it to the SEC championship game and they made it to the college football playoffs. And really the year before that was Coach DeBoer's first year. And the year before that, Alabama was in the semifinals and barely lost to Michigan, as poor as we played, and really could have made it to the national championship game and also won the SEC championship game that year. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like sometimes, and it's all about perspective, but I think it's important to look at the whole picture and not just go off of what you feel after watching the last 3 games that we played that weren't our best showing, you know, actually knowing who is on this roster, who's on this team, and having a little bit of an idea about that. I think that kind of helps clean some stuff up. But anyway, I know I've been rambling. Enough of that. Those are my thoughts on it. Now I want to get y'all's thoughts. 205-342-9904. We'd love to do that. I know we got Smitty on here. Maybe we can squeeze him in a little bit before Clint. If not, we'll definitely get him after Clint. If we have to. We'll figure all that out. But first, we got to hit a timeout, and we'll keep on rolling right here on the Miller's Edge. Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Team USA is chasing their...
Sorry, I know that was very long-winded. I was trying to bring it all back. Hopefully you guys get what I'm saying, though. I'm not saying I agree with Joe Klatt, but, I mean, you guys know we're honest on this show. I mean, if we've been sitting here saying for 3 weeks now that, yeah, it just feels like there's a good chance that this might be a little bit of a step back with all the youth, everything that we're replacing, and everyone, I should say. New quarterback, you know, a lot of new faces on the offensive line. Still trying to figure out our running game. To be fair, at least as it sits right now, I mean, I probably would, if you're talking about the 2026 season, that probably would classify as, you know, stock down a little bit. Which, yeah, that's part of it, man. I ain't mad at it. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to see between the lines, But to make it seem like stock down, meaning like everything has just been, you know, the wheels have fallen off. I disagree with that. But if you're saying outlook on that's the best way to put it. Outlook on 2026 could be a little bit of a stock down situation where things currently sit, just because there's so many question marks. I'm not going to disagree with that. But as a whole, still left intact. Well, like I said, I mean, I'm not. I take pride in trying to be as informative as possible. I'm not saying I'll ever be perfect in anything I say. So, I mean, I could say, oh, I feel like it could be a little bit of a step back, and we could go undefeated. You know, I mean, don't ever base it off of just anything I say or anybody else says. You know, no one even knows. The coaches don't even know. Literally, no one knows. But all I do is I just base off of, just like Brandon said last week, he was on the show. You know, from my experience, anytime you have a young offensive line, a whole new quarterback, question marks still in the running game. I mean, like, the reality is that's typically a recipe. Keyword typically a recipe for, you know, a lot of growing pains. You know, you typically don't just say, all right, that's the situation we're dealing with, and we expect to be that much better. Is what I'm getting at. It's just not. It's not accurate. Anybody that says otherwise is just trying to just tell you guys something to make you feel good. That said, though, guys can get better, you know. Coaches can kind of shift some things with their scheme to help their players have a better chance to have success. I mean, a lot of things can happen. Package duo is kind of lame at some point. You need to have evaluation on yourself. You talking about James and what's his name? in Quay. I mean, I think they're just really close. I don't know the logistics of that whole thing, but I'm just telling you right now, any fans that are just downplaying those players, I'm not saying you can't win without them. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that. But I just don't like when we have guys leave and all of a sudden fans just start bashing guys and act like they're the worst players, this and that. But just a couple months ago, we're cheering for them, and everybody loved every bit of James Smith when he was standing on business after games. But because he ends up leaving, he ends up transferring, and there was no bad blood, no nothing with that whole situation, right? I mean, like he just, it's part of the business. It wasn't even about money. It wasn't about money. He could have left. He could have been left and made more money. He chose to stay and make less money. It was never about money with him. I just don't like that. I don't like the energy from our fans. It just, to me, it reminds me of like the ex-girlfriend that's salty that she got broken up with. So now she's like trying to tarnish the dude's name, or vice versa, or a salty ex-boyfriend, trying to tarnish a girl's name just because they broke up. I just don't like that energy when I see it from our fans, but to each his own. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of Miller's Edge, top 100.9, 1230 WTBC. All right, we're breaking down the whole Joel Klatt take on Alabama. He says stock down, which I just gave a whole long-winded answer. I'm not going to sit there and bore you guys with that. I want to give other perspectives and other opinions. We got Smitty on the phone lines, but I'm going to wait until we finish up with Clint. If you want to hang up, Smitty, that way you're not just sitting there because, Clint will probably be on about 20 minutes or so. Just call us back. I promise I'll get you right on as soon as we finish with Clint. But I don't want to do you dirty. We only got like 4 minutes until we hit this top of the hour break, and that's not enough time. I want to give you plenty of time. But again, quick little summary is not going to fully disagree with Joel Klatt, even though I disagree with a lot. If you're talking about 26 only, I think it is fair to say that with all the question marks and all the youth, that technically that the definition of having a lot of question marks and not being as confident, that would probably be considered stock down. But in terms of as a whole, no, I mean that's can't say that after the progress that was made last season, and then even just not long ago, Alabama did just win an SEC championship game 2 short years ago and was in the semifinals. So I don't know. Like I said, all about perspective. And he's a Big Ten guy. You know what I mean? So he's going to have his opinion. I don't think he hates Alabama like people say. I don't think he hates Alabama. I just don't think he's as informed or as exposed to Alabama as much as he probably needs to be to have a better feel on the program, on the team. And because I'll be honest, I don't think, a lot of media folks come to practice or come cover to, I can't say, and I know he covers Big Ten, but I've never seen Joe Klatt around here. I've never seen him at an Alabama game. I see a bunch of other guys, which makes sense. They actually cover the team. He doesn't, but still, I've never. So that's probably something to consider. Mario says he hates the SEC. I don't think these guys hate any conference like that. I just don't think they're exposed enough to it to have a true respect. That's the best way I put it. I don't think these guys hate it or anything like that. I just don't think they have enough experience or exposure to really respect it for what it is. I don't even want to get into the whole Big Ten versus SEC thing, but I always tell people I respect the Big Ten. There's no denying. Last 3 national champions came from the Big Ten: Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan. Right? So, anybody that tries to hate on the Big Ten, you can't, because I mean those are 3 Big Ten teams that have won the national championship the last 3 years. That said, if you're talking about top to bottom though, in the schedules, I know they were playing 9-game schedules, but it's a little bit different playing a 9-game schedule in the Big Ten where it's top to bottom, not nearly what the SEC is. And what happens is, and we talk about this, we know this, but I don't think people realize this. The SEC beats up on each other. The records start looking a little bit more average because everybody beats up on each other. And by the time we get to bowl games, whether people want to believe this or not, these guys are checked out. LSU going into the season, they have national championship hopes and dreams. Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, all these teams. So once they get 2 losses and things start looking a little south, it is what it is. The mentality and the mindset shifts. That's not an excuse. Listen, if you lose in a bowl game, you lose in a bowl game. I want to be clear. But best believe the LSU, the Texas, the whatever SEC team that you're playing in a bowl game that is no longer in contention for a national championship game is not that same SEC team that you would have played in week 2, 3, 4, or 5 here in this conference. Best believe that. And I'm telling you guys, I don't think I can say that's a fact. It's hard to say that objectively, but from experience, I stand very firm on that. Reed, before we hit this top of the hour break, do you have any thoughts on what Joel Klatt said?
Yeah, Christian, I think it really comes down to breaking down what actually is stock down. I was getting to thinking because kind of like you said, he kind of shaped it. At least I first kind of read it as in, oh gosh, he's saying that Bama's going to, completely fall off. But then I really got to thinking, I'm like, all right, so if we nearly replicate, this past season that we had, right, per se, right, we go 10-2 in the regular season, we lose in the SEC championship again. But this time we make the playoffs, but we lose in the first round rather than the second round, right? Technically speaking, that's stock down. Am I wrong? And so it really just comes down whether it's a little bit of growth or a little bit of a decline. He's just saying that there is going to be a decline, and I'm almost in agreement a little bit because, like you said, it's the unfamiliar
uncertainty.
Uncertainty of what's.
There's a whole new quarterback, even though they're both talented. Like all the things that we've talked about over the last 3 weeks or so, that could be things that could come up or cause a lot of growing pains that could lead to some. And what's interesting is if you think about it, all of our listeners, I think, agree with everything we've talked about. Everybody, if you really keep up with football and you know the game, I think everybody can agree that Alabama's got a little bit of an uphill climb to at least recreate what they did this past season. That's just a fact, just because of so many guys you're replacing. So I'm with you. Yeah, if you look at it from that lens, sure. But I definitely think that, he went a little bit overboard and didn't include, everything, the whole picture. And then last thing I'll say is this. At the end of the day, Alabama is a victim of their own success. Alabama's going to be judged differently than any other team. If any other team, just like my dad says all the time, any other team had the last 2 years that Alabama has had, hell, even like an LSU, to them, they're going to think their stock is up. I mean, when was the last time LSU played in an SEC championship game, let alone won one? Not a shot at them. I'm just being honest. So the fact that Alabama's standard and expectation, now not only externally but also internally, is SEC championship game every year, playoff run, at least should be damn near playing for a national championship every year. Because of that, Alabama's always going to be heavily scrutinized, and we know that, right? I don't think it's because people hate Alabama. It's an unfortunate byproduct of the success that we've had over the last 2 decades. So we got to hit the top of our break. Good conversation going. When we come back, we'll get Clint Lamb's thoughts on it from Cover Crimson right here on the Miller's Edge, Top 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
TBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa.
All right. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us, man. We got 66 folks in here. Let's do some like patrol, man. Let's see what we got. We got 36. Not bad, man. Let's see if we can get up to 45 real quick during this timeout. If you guys like the new setup, man, hit that like button, man. Hit that like button. We got the whole new production. We got professional production going on now, which is exciting. The thing that troubled me about the Indiana game was lack of fight. 1000% agree. Almost like we threw a punch, took it, checked out. Was not expected. Yeah, no, 100%. Sorry if you hear snoring. It's my big lab, man. He's tired out, I guess. Took him to play fetch earlier. Kind of like the Patriots with Tom Brady and Bill. Yeah. I mean, look, Alabama's a victim of its own success, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's, it can be frustrating because it just makes you feel like you're chasing this. I wouldn't call it a ghost, but I mean, you're chasing, a once in a lifetime type dynasty, or at least the results that it had. And, I guess never say never, because we also have been saying there will never be another undefeated type team in college football. And of course, man, Indiana, who went from being the second worst program of like all time, ended up doing that. I'm gonna play this in the background real quick because I know we got Clint coming up.
They have quickly descended into a place that when I think about their conference, I don't think about them initially, and I don't even think about them in the top 3.
So when he said top 3, I guess maybe he was alluding to another team like who would be the third team ahead of Alabama then? What, maybe A&M? I think that's a lie, though. I mean, regardless, you can't think about the SEC without thinking Alabama, regardless if it's a 9-win season or what. The more I listen to it, though, the more it feels like he's definitely kind of basing it off of just what he's seen out of the team in games like Indiana, Georgia. Like, he's hyper focused on that, which that's going to happen, man. That's what I always say, man. Like, when it comes to tape, what you put on it is your resume. That's how people are going to judge you.
When I think about the SEC, I immediately think of Georgia and Texas. And oh, by the way, Alabama. Alabama is my stock down team. The reality is that they are coming off back-to-back 4-loss years, that the best part of their team last year was Ty Simpson by a wide margin, by the way, and they're losing Ty Simpson. I don't love what's going on down there. They were blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship game. They were blown out by Indiana. And it wasn't just that like, oh, Indiana did whatever they wanted to do. They ran the ball 50 times straight at Alabama. This is not the Alabama of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and certainly not 10 years ago. So they have been trending down, and that trend, I think, is going to continue. They've got to figure out their quarterback for next year. Is it going to be Austin Mack or Keelan Russell? 0 starts between them in an era in which experience is everything that you need at that position.
And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We've been talking a little bit about this whole Joel Klatt clip that's been going around circulating social media about Alabama stock. I'm a big stock guy. Stock market's definitely looking a little interesting right now. And according to Joel Klatt, so is Alabama stock. He claims it's a stock down situation here in Tuscaloosa. We're now going to go to the phone lines. We're joined by our guest who joins us every top of the hour on a Talking Tuesday, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Clint, man, how's everything going for you, brother?
It's doing fantastic, Christian. How you doing today, man?
Man, I can't complain, man. We've got some fans riled up a little bit with this Joel Klatt clip. I was playing it for a second time before we got you on here just to kind of take a second listen to it, and I think they're sick of it at this point. But I guess we'll just start there. We got to start there, Clint, because that's the talk of the town. And I think you've heard the clip, so I don't need to replay it. But what did you think of Joel Klatt's take? And I'll just say this real quick. When I heard it initially, I kind of had the same reaction to a lot of other people. But then I had to sit there and listen and think to myself, like, to be fair, I mean, a lot of the question marks and concerns that he mentioned, I've been talking a lot about on the show here the past month or so. And so, and then I remember, I'm like, technically I said I would think Alabama might be looked at as a little bit like a 9-3 type team going into 2026. If we're basing it off of that strictly, technically that lines up. If you're only talking about 2026, it's a little bit of a stock down situation, not necessarily in a bad way. Just if we're going off of everything that I've said personally, I'm speaking for myself right now. So I was kind of open-minded from that. But then I feel like there's some of the things that he included that he kind of lost me with here. But overall, Clint, what did you take from Joel Klatt when he came out and said Alabama's stock down in 2026?
Well, from his perspective, I mean, it made sense, if I'm speaking candidly, because a lot of what these national guys, what they're going to do, they're not going to dive into the weeds as far as like you and I, as far as Alabama football. They're not going to know every single player who was lost, every single player who was added, what they bring to the table, what the expectations are. They're not talking to tons of sources in Tuscaloosa and kind of getting some of the preliminary thoughts that the coaching staff might have on some of these players. And so what they're really going to look at, they are going to look at high school recruiting rankings to an extent, but the kind of thought process is now that a lot of the high school guys from an experience standpoint, they bring absolutely nothing. And then from what you can expect from them in year one, yes, you might get 1 or 2 or 3, pieces that help you, but you can't be overly reliant on high school recruiting. So what do they look at? They look at the returning players that you have, and they look at who you added in the transfer portal. And then they look at kind of who you lost compared to the season before. And when you look at Alabama through that lens, you lost Ty Simpson to the NFL draft. Cam Miller is exhausted his eligibility. Isaiah Horton ended up transferring. Jeremy Bernard, who was the most consistent receiver, they ended up losing him. Josh Cuevas, easily the most consistently reliable tight end, you lose him. You look at the offensive line, Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford. I mean, I could go through and list all these different names on both sides of the football. And on the secondary, they return a lot. But other than that, a lot of key players. And so for us, for people like me and you, we look at it and we say, well, that's a lot of uncertainty. We look at what it could end up looking like and while we might be optimistic about some of these spots, but for a national guy who's doing this for pretty much everybody, I mean, he's going to look at that and say, man, that's a lot that you lost. You look at the transfer portal and maybe some of the players they lost there. You look at some of what they added, and I'm intrigued by some of these guys, but maybe not the star power at the top that some of these other programs did. And so from that standpoint, the way that Alabama has been trending as far as, 2 of your last 3 games, you got blown out. And then that other game, you were losing by 3 scores and had to make an epic comeback. So that's what I think is playing into it. I know that's probably not what fans want to hear, but that's the reality. I don't blame Joel Klatt is my whole entire point. Now, with that being said, I don't know that I would necessarily include them on a stock down. They're more of the TBD to me. I can see scenarios where it actually ends up looking better in some areas that really make a huge difference. But I can also see where it's not Alabama comparing it necessarily to Alabama. It's also comparing, okay, what did Georgia do in the offseason? What did Indiana do? What did they add? And I mean, from that standpoint, the star power was certainly there at the top from the high school side of things, but from the transfer portal and from a returning player standpoint, those are 2 key factors that I think Alabama, at least to the national media, is probably lacking in right now.
You mentioned a couple areas that could be improved or look better going into 2026, and a couple that maybe could face some more challenges. Clint, do you mind sharing which of those would fall into which category? Like what areas you think could be improved and what might face, a few more challenges this upcoming season?
Yeah, for me, I honestly do think the run game can show improvement. I don't see how it can be worse. I think overall,
Yeah.
You look at Caden Proctor, you look at Parker Brailsford, and some of the guys they lost along the offensive line, and you could say, from an offensive line standpoint, there are situations where maybe it does look worse. But statistically speaking, it was one of the worst, least efficient run games that Alabama has had in the history of its program. So considering all of the emphasis that was put on fixing the run game, they went out and hired, an offensive line coach that's got run game coordinator experience. They went and got a tight ends coach who also has experience as an offensive line coach and also has experience as a run game coordinator. They bring in an entirely new set of offensive linemen. You bring in a talent like DJ Crowell. I just think that so many things that they've done in the offseason, Josh Ford at tight end being brought in as a big blocking tight end. If you put that much emphasis on improving your run game and it doesn't improve, pretty drastically, not saying it's going to all of a sudden be an elite run game or even a great run game, but if it doesn't become serviceable, that's a massive, massive red flag. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I just think with that much of an emphasis, they're going to do whatever it takes to kind of get that side of it fixed. As far as some of the problem areas, potentially, I look at the second level on defense and I see a lot of potential solutions, but there's nobody established. I don't know what Caleb Woodson's going to look like as a transfer portal player. I don't know what QB Reese, I think he's going to be able to hold up, but he's 224 pounds. So that's going to create some questions. I like Luke Metz. I like Caden Jones. But once again, guys who aren't established, neither one of them were elite recruits coming out of high school. And so there's some projection there. Does Xavier Griffin, can he get into the mix of the true freshmen? These are all questions that we have. But I could see, considering what you had, Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, and Mikaio Green, I could see somewhat of a drop-off there. And I think that being kind of the field general spot, or at least one of those linebackers from a communication standpoint, if they don't get the right guy in place, is there a drop-off as far as the communication on defense? Like, these are some of the things that I'm thinking about. I think Bandit in particular is a position that I continue to have question marks about. I think, you've got guys that don't fit, like Des Zulu. He's going to be asked to do something he's never done before. I don't know if that's playing wolf and having to play off the ball a little bit, dropping coverage, playing space, or if that's him having to play on the inside shoulder of a tackle. He's going to have to do some things that he just simply didn't have to do at South Carolina. And I don't know how he's going to perform in those instances. A guy like Jamarian Latham, does he play wolf? Does he play bandit? What size do they get into? Or is he asked to start again, or is he more of a rotational piece? Does Devin Tompkins play bandit? Does he play on the interior? Do one of these true freshmen, Jamarian Matthews or Nolan Wilson, those end up being your primary bandits? Does Kavonte Henry end up taking that next step in his development? Like, that's a spot individually. I like nose. I like the 3-tech. But when it comes to the bandit, I have huge question marks. Once again, I think that a solution could be in there somewhere. I just can't tell you where it's coming from. So for me to sit here and tell you, I think the run defense or the defensive front in general is going to be great, I mean, I can't tell you that definitively. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. I know that the way that I probably framed it could have some Bama fans panicking. It's not. I don't think there's any reason to panic. I think we need to see what it looks like in spring. But these are question marks that I have where if I'm a national guy and I'm evaluating all these teams, I can't look at Alabama and have this automatic assumption that all these pieces are going to come together correctly to a point where you get an elite national championship caliber team. And based off of where Alabama was as a program, even as short as, half a decade ago, a lot of people in comparison, when they look at Alabama now, they probably are going to view it as a stock down program or a stock down team. But I just, I still think there's several different ways this to work out where Alabama could still be in really good shape.
Yeah, no, and you don't ever have to apologize for being objective. You're 100% right. I mean, the reality is, and that's why I was trying to explain. I know we always try to do it in a way where fans don't freak out, but like you said, I mean, when you have so many new faces and you have a defensive line unit where, and I was just mentioning this yesterday, the biggest thing is if you just really think about it, I mean, from a very objective sense that, you had LT Overton, who's a very talented player. I know people talk about him not finished on the quarterback, but if you watch the tape, I mean, you're talking about stopping the run, just generating pressure on the quarterback. Tim Keenan, he's kind of an unsung hero type guy where he eats up blocks. I mean, you had some really solid pieces and you still were a little inconsistent stopping the run. And then you talk about losing all the guys behind him. That typically, that's with all those question marks, that number of them, there's going to be uncertainty. That's very fair to say, and it makes total sense. We're joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Make sure you guys check out all the good stuff that they're doing. Any podcast platform, you can find them at Cover Crimson on YouTube as well, at Cover Crimson on X, and Clint's personal at Clint R. Lamb. Clint, I want to ask you, there was a recent addition that was added to this roster last week. I think it happened after we spoke with you on Tuesday. I think it was around Friday or so. But a wide receiver, Tyler Henderson, I believe is his name. He's a JUCO product. He was an All-American in his league. But I know there's a mixed reaction to him being added to this roster. I know some folks, and I think Marquise Mays had mentioned a comment. And I don't know if he was specifically mentioning him or not. And then even some fans just kind of not necessarily understanding why some of the additions we've had recently might not seem to line up with some of the additions in the past. And I just, my explanation was, hey, man, you've got 105 roster spots now that can all be scholarships. So you're going to be adding a bunch of guys. There's going to be a bunch of players that might not have initially been Alabama guys, but they have that opportunity given that there's, room for it now. The rules permit it. But have you had a chance to see any of his film or any of his tape? And if so, what do you think about him, Clint? And then what are your just thoughts on the whole thing with Alabama adding players that some people feel like might not be Alabama type guys?
Yeah, I've watched Tyler Henderson, and I like what I've seen. Now, granted, I'm not expecting him to come in here and be one of Alabama's top 5 or 6 receivers. I think he's a good kind of, middle ground or guy that kind of fits in between those top, 6 or so players, the returning players, or a Noah Rogers, or even a C.D. Morgan, if you want to go ahead and put him in that group, despite the fact that he's a true freshman. Like, you've got those 6 players who we're expecting to be competing for those, 3 or 4 rotational or starting or rotational spots. And then you got the MJ Mathis, Aubrey Walker, Amari Saab type of players that are a little bit lower rated. Fans don't know as much about them. They weren't as highly recruited. And, that's more of, you fill out your roster, you make sure you've got numbers, you've got practice squad players, but they all have certain traits that as a coaching staff you could look at and probably say, we can build around this. This is something that this guy brings to the table, whether it be an explosiveness or speed, vertical ability. That's something that's kind of been lacking in this class, or just from a special teams return specialist type of situation. I think Tyler Henderson kind of fits in the middle there because he does have some college experience. He's a little bit older. I think he's going to be a little bit, more ready to kind of fill out the bottom half of your wide receiver depth chart. And what I saw on tape is a guy who, he catches it clean. He catches it away from his body. He's not a body catcher. I don't know if he runs the 4.38 that he's reported. I do think he's fast, but that could be, either way, I don't think it really matters too much because I saw a guy that can win vertically down the field and a guy who, I think is a little bit more well-rounded as far as the route running. And I still think there's some growth that needs to happen there. But I think he's a good player. And I think at this point in the process, he didn't really cost you anything as far as the NIL or the rev share. And, you give him a scholarship. But this is something right now, like we've got to wrap our minds around the idea that Nick Saban didn't have 105 spots to give players, a scholarship. And just because they are being added in that 105 range doesn't mean that they should be viewed as someone that like would typically be in your top 85. And that's something that I think a lot of fans have had trouble with. And it doesn't even really, I wouldn't even say the top 85 because I don't think Georgia is getting from number 1 to number 85 what they were getting 5 years ago under Kirby Smart. I don't really think anybody is. I think it's more so being condensed. And, when you start probably getting outside the top 50, maybe the top 60, you start getting into these types of players who have upside, but they're not all going to be highly recruited. They're not all going to be a guy who you're going to view as this guy's definitely going to come in and eventually be a starter for us. You got to take swings. And one thing I'll say about this staff is based off of some of the lower rated guys that they've gone after and gotten and then seen an impact from, I think they have a pretty good feel or the ability to hit on some of these players. So I don't know if MJ Mathis, Aubrey Walker, or Amari Stab, I don't know if any of them will ever turn into a guy who's in the rotation for Alabama. I don't know if Tyler Henderson will, but I think they gave themselves 4 pretty good swings at the bottom of their wide receiver depth chart that could end up paying off if just one of these guys hits. They're all worth it. They're all worth the swing. And so I more so understand it, but just this idea that, you can live, in this mindset of the way it used to be and how the rosters were used to be built. I mean, Nick Saban, if he would have stuck around, he was not going to be doing on the recruiting front what he had done for so long. You were already starting to see the chinks in the armor as far as that's concerned. So it's something that I know and I understand a lot of fans are trying to wrap their minds around it. It's different, but that's the way it is. And I think that the biggest problem that fans are dealing with right now is the ones who are kind of willing to accept how it is now and how it is going to look different. And if you're trying to hold it to old standards that are completely obsolete, you're going to look at this through a lens of being extremely disappointed. But it's not fair. It's not where anybody's living now. So you got to come to grips with where it's actually at. And if you can do that, then I think you can start to enjoy this process a little bit more, because I do think that they, in a lot of ways, I like what they're doing as far as the roster building and trying to work around some of the limitations.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. Kind of resetting those expectations and maybe updating the software a little bit, for lack of a better term to use there, because you're right, it is totally different. And the landscape's different. Roster management is different. Hell, we have general managers in college football, guys. I mean, we're hiring. We just made new hires, right? Other folks that are taking on these quote unquote front office personnel type roles, which they're replacing folks that were here prior. But still, I mean, it's a lot different. So you're 100% right. You got to be able to manage all these pieces, moving pieces. We had Levi Wallace on the show yesterday, and he's working with CJ Mosley's agency now, and he'll be the first one to tell you. He mentioned it on the show. I mean, a lot of guys are looking, to get up and leave pretty much year after year, right? I mean, that's the nature of this beast. I mean, so you're worrying about retention, you're worrying about recruiting new guys, the process, that window's short. It's a totally different landscape. But Clint, I want to ask you, speaking of new faces and new hires, Brandon Aoki, I know you tweeted about him, so I'm assuming you know a little bit more maybe than I do. But he's been hired as, it looks like, maybe an analyst here on this staff. I think he's a quarterback guy. Quarterback guy, should be helping out the quarterbacks. What do you know about him, and kind of what could that hire look like, or maybe what might be expected out of him in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, the number one thing is how many people kind of have talked about him since Alabama made the hire, and just have kind of the reviews have been glowing. And when you start looking at it, it makes sense. He played 4 years, from my understanding, at USC. I think his final season was in 2022, which was Lincoln Riley's first year at USC, and he was only a walk-on, so obviously wasn't going to be somebody who played or whatever. But that's number one. Is he has experience playing at a major program. He played the quarterback position, and then he ended up going to Colorado State. He was an offensive, graduate assistant in 2023. Colorado State ended up having a top 10 passing offense, which I thought was noteworthy because then he ended up going back to his alma mater with Lincoln Riley, who coached him, and he became an analyst under Riley for 2 seasons. And USC had the number 10 passing offense in 2024 and the number 5 passing offense in 2025. So since he's become an analyst, he's been around 3 top 10 passing offenses. And so I think that's noteworthy. I think the fact that they pulled him from USC and pulled him from Lincoln Riley, I think that's kind of eye-opening or surprising, and I think that's pretty encouraging. And I think that a lot of the moves that have been made, when you think about it, offensive line coach, tight end, the tight end, that was added to the transfer portal, running back, and the way it was targeted, there's been such a huge emphasis on improving the run game. But this offense is still built around the passing game, right? That's still primarily where they want to win. They're going to get strong quarterback play. You're going to have good wide receivers. That's just all part of it. And a guy like Aoki, he kind of keeps that on track. And you've lost some pretty key guys as far as the passing game is concerned. And so they needed to replace a lot of that. And I think they've done a pretty good job of doing it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, spring, it's going to tell us so many things because there's so many new faces on the field in terms of players, the coaching staff, seeing where everybody fits in. You mentioned the bandit spot earlier, and I think that's going to grab my attention probably the most because you only guy coming back is Cavante Hendry, if I'm not mistaken. So it's totally brand new at that position. And like you said, there's so many different pieces there. But I'm excited to see some of the new coaches work as well. Tight ends coach, offensive line coach, and even some of these analysts will be interesting to see kind of the new look for 2026. Clint, I appreciate you hanging out with us, man, on this Talking Tuesday like you always do. Before we let you go, man, you got to plug your stuff, let everybody know how they can keep up with all the good work that you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You can find us on YouTube. Just search Cover Crimson. We got a daily show that we're doing now, a daily live show around 5:15 or 5:30 every single day. But we also got a lot of other content that goes out. Then we have, if you want to listen to it through podcast form, if that's the way you want to consume, you can go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen, search the Cover Crimson Podcast Network and find it that way. Or you can find me on Twitter at Clint R. Lamb. So I appreciate you having me on as always, Christian, and I look forward to next week.
Sounds like a plan, brother. We appreciate you, Clint. Have a great rest of your day, brother.
You too, man. Good talking to you.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Our guy, Clint Lamb, man, always great stuff from him. From Cover Crimson, make sure you check him out. Like he mentioned, all the platforms that you can find him, anywhere you get your podcast stuff, on X. Clint breaks it down, man, like no other. He's got stamina when it comes to breaking tape down and tweets and just going in the weeds, man. He's a great follow, so make sure you guys check out all the good work that they're doing on their side of things. All right, we got to hit this timeout. We come back, we keep on rolling. We open it up to you guys on this Talking Tuesday, 205-342-9904. Hit us up on the phone lines. We'll get Smitty up first. Hopefully he's still hanging around, ready to roll. And then we'll keep on rolling from there right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
Max your tax refund with...
Man, I don't know if it was the new camera setup or adjusting the mic things, but even Reed, who's in studio, y'all's feed on my end, man, sounds so much better. Before it was all broken, choppy. Half the time I wasn't hearing like the bumper music, the intro, outro, all that stuff. But now everything is just rolling, man. I love it. All right, bet. Smitty's on the line, ready to go. We're going to go to Smitty and roll from there. If you guys want to jump in on anything, man, please do. Let's try to catch up on some of these messages in the chat. James Smith never really became the guy. I don't know if it was development or maybe we just overrated him a bit. I don't think so much of overrating necessarily. I mean, the dude is talented. Like, I mean, I've seen James. I watched him. Oh yeah, I turned the mic down a little bit because my dog's over here snoring, man. He's knocked out. Hopefully that's a little bit better, but Can y'all hear him snoring though? Maybe you can. I don't know. I was worried you could. That's why I turned the gain down. But anyway, I've been watching James since probably when he came out of high school, and then just seeing him develop here in Tuscaloosa. I mean, the dude had talent. I'll just say it like this, man. I don't think he always was put in the best position necessarily. I think that's part of it. And then, all right, good. All right, I thought you could. And then the other thing I feel like is, I think he himself. So early on, you know, they used to talk a lot about James, and I mean, overly impressed with him. The dude had all the talent and potential, but he had to, you know, he had to make that decision himself that he was going to show up and do things on a consistent basis. You know, basically had to grow up a little bit, mature. And, you know, that happens. Sometimes you have guys, I mean, they're used to just being the best player, right? They're used to being the guy. And then they get here and it's like, man, every single day it's a grind. I mean, you're demanded to show up each and every single day. And that was, again, like early James. That was when he was young. Last year or two, I mean, he had really, in regards to that, it was night and day's difference. He had really stepped up, matured a lot. And, you know, I think it was also a number of times he just maybe, you know, didn't always, in terms of the effort he was playing with, if he could play a little bit more consistent, because you saw it. It was like sometimes he'd turn it on, you see him. I mean, when he get pissed off, I mean, he's, you know, wrecking havoc. And there'd be other times it seems like he kind of would take a couple plays off. So I just think if he cleans up the consistency part, you put him in a system where he can really thrive. I don't think he was necessarily in the best position where he was playing here or how we used him. And for all that, I just think I see him going to Ohio State. And I see him having a really good season. As long as he puts all those other things together. I mean, the talent's there. There's no denying that. Similar with Quay, man. I mean, I remember watching Quay during fall camp. And, man, he looked great the way he was moving. I mean, he's always been so powerful, so strong. But he looked so much more explosive. And I was really expecting him before he got hurt to really come along. And before he got hurt, I mean, people keep forgetting this. Before he got hurt, man, he was stepping up. I mean, he had that sack. Exploded off the rock against, was it Wisconsin? And I was like, man, there he's starting to put it together, man. He's starting to kind of get his rhythm. And then, of course, injury happened. But what Joel said is fair. Alabama's to prove otherwise in this era. Respect. That's I can agree with that. You know, it doesn't sound good to hear. I don't agree with all the points that he made. You know, I think he definitely he leaned real heavy into I mean, I guess that's what you're going to do when you're trying to back your argument. You get my point. I agree with you, though. I agree with you. I think it's fair what he said. If we're just saying stock down, I mean, we technically agreed before he even made that sentiment, just because there's so many question marks right now. Like, biggest thing you said, Todd, was we have to prove it, you know, and we can go out there and prove it and shut a lot of people up. And hopefully that's the case, but we definitely have a little bit of an uphill battle with all the newness. But hey, the good news is it makes it exciting, though. It's going to be a lot to watch this offseason. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Big shout out to Clint Lamb, who just joined us here like he does every Tuesday at the top of the hour. Make sure you guys check them out if you wanted to hear more from Clint. Like he mentioned, they've got a new live show that they're doing daily around 5 to 5:30. I want to say Central Time in the evenings, he said. So make sure you guys check that out, and all the good stuff that they're doing over at Cover Crimson. And of course, check them out here Tuesdays at the top of the hour. And just come hang out with us too, man. We got a lot of fun stuff that we're in the works with. Again, we got some good interviews lined up. Anthony Jennings, former Alabama linebacker, Patriots linebacker, should be joining us Friday at the top of the hour. So I'm excited about that as well. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. You got our guy Smitty, who's been hanging on patiently, waiting. Smitty, what you got, man? What do you think about the whole Joe Klatt thing, man?
How's everything going with you, Christian?
It's good, brother. Wait, hold on. Before you do that, is it just me? Because I realize you're famous in the whole internet wrestling community. What's up with WWE right now, man? No, it feels stale. It feels Raw last night was bad, man. What's going on, Smitty?
Hey, I hate being famous for that because there's a bunch of dopes who up there just argue about everything. I just be like, I'm going on a date. I'm sorry, I can't argue with you. But here's the thing. Some people are just stale. They have injuries like Bianca Belair being out. Obafemi, Hobie Russell, Brock Lesnar in the division are just flat as day old Coke. I'm just being honest. Some people, I like SmackDown more, to be honest with you.
True.
You know,
I mean,
my guy, Williams.
Yeah, he's been crushing it though. Thank God they're finally giving him a chance.
He's from South Carolina, your neck of the woods.
Yeah, Columbia, man. I think he's from Columbia. I know he went to the university though, so yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that. You know, I don't argue with those people. I just want to be entertained. I'm going to the show in March when it comes out here again. But first about Marquise Mays, right? I would love to ask him. He tried taking junior guys you may not have heard of. Well, he may not like Isaiah Buggs, Jerry Reed, Terrence Cody, who was a teammate who weighed over 400 pounds, and Nick had told him to lose this much weight he won't play. DeQuan Mendy was to start a cornerback on our first one of our national title teams early on. Or even yet, Levi Wallace. Imagine folks would have said about him. And I think you say his career finally wrapped up, but he had a good career, especially from where he started in the college ranks. So sometimes I'm not predicting anyone to be a star, but I just want to give people a chance, you know. And look, and Levi beat out some guys who were 4 or 5 stars to get that corner spot. So, and I just think that sometimes we got to give people a chance. But with Joel Klatt, here's the thing. A lot of people, like Clint hit on, I've been saying this since I started calling you guys. A lot of people do lazy analysis. All they look at is, do you know your quarterback's name, who's coming back to school? That was the reason Penn State and Clemson were, like, highly ranked, and I called BS on that early. Yes, Klubnik and Drew Allo came back to school, but they stunk the 3 years prior. Both of them were booty and cheeks. Clemson could stop the run the year before. And guess what happened? They couldn't with those same guys coming back. They couldn't stop the run. Penn State stunk against the better teams. What happened? They stunk against the better teams. Sometimes. But they just look at that. And like everybody's hyping up LSU portal class. The quarterback they got in the portal, Sam Levitt, he played at Arizona State. For folks who may not know, he quit on his team midway through the year because he wanted to hit the portal. He just started quarterback. Do you want that guy on your team as your starting quarterback? I wouldn't. But they had the number 1 portal class the year before, right? And Brian Kelly is probably sitting on a beach right now. He fired him. But like with Texas, right? Here's the thing. I have no beef about Georgia, right? None. They proved it. Ironically, though, that same Alabama team's 2-1 against Georgia, and they beat them at Georgia this year. They never trailed. You know, Texas has been blown out twice by Georgia, right? In the third game they lost, Carson Beck went out. They still couldn't win the game, and they lost to a bad Florida team. But the question I have is, they gotta have consistency. How come it was like, it's like, well, we don't know about these Alabama quarterbacks. We don't know. We don't really give them a shot. But that same pundits was so sure that Arch Manning was going to be Peyton Manning. Let's just be real.
He still got some time. He's still got some time. I don't necessarily see it just yet, but
brother,
I don't know. He's got some time.
This is going to be his 4th year in the program. Are we waiting on Haley's Comet to come back? That's what we're looking at right now. You know, I'm sorry. If I was Kilo Russell, who's a 2nd year on campus, I give you that, you know. But it's his 3rd year on campus when he started. Sarkis is supposedly offensive guru. And I think Texas were like 11 and 12th in the SEC in rushing last season. They were bad too. And their offensive line was not that great. But with Joe Klatt, the message I'm getting is Alabama would have been better off not making a playoff and just playing in Citrus Bowl. That's what it sounds like. But, you know, everybody loves Dan Lanning also. 2 straight years. With Nike money, gotten blown out in the playoffs twice in a row.
Fair.
Start with all that money, oil money. What has he done with that oil money? A&M. So at the end of the day, you may be able to purchase a Jimmy and Joe's, but you got to coach the Jimmy and Joe's and pick the right guys to build your team. And I think, like, Georgia's the dominant team, you know, and they earned it. They ain't out there blowing wads of cash on all these folks. They're developing. And I think with us this year, I think 9-3 will be a good year because you got so much youth. I would rather go 9-3 with youth, take our lumps, and then develop and get better at the end. Just win the games that you're supposed to win. That's the big thing. And
100%.
you can come up short against the Georgias. And I think what also people got to understand also, every departure is not equal. For example, I'm not going to sit there and cuss out Wilkins for him and call him out his name, but we got to be honest. If you're looking for a starting left tackle, right tackle, it's going to be Michael Carroll. And if he didn't want to play guard, guess what he's going to do? He's going to go for where he can play right tackle. That's nothing personal. That's just the way. That's just football, you know. It happens.
Yeah. Well, they took care of him, man. I mean, I mentioned on here. I ain't saying the specific numbers, but he got paid a lot of money. And to be fair, I mean, because people value experience. You know, he's got starting experience in the conference, and I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, was he the best lineman we've ever had here in Tuscaloosa? No, but listen, he can definitely be serviceable. And I think if you work with him, I think if you get him in a system where maybe you put him where he feels comfortable playing, and I don't know, I could see it lining up, and he could be a decent offensive lineman for you that it's hard to come by, you know. So it is what it is, and plus that's what people pay. I know people are like, man, they paid that much money. Yes, I mean the market, it is what it is for a starting offensive lineman. You're paying a lot of money, you know. It is what it is. But now I hear what you say, Smitty. But let me ask you this though. Let me ask you this though. Because look, at the end of the day, Joel Klatt said Alabama's stock is down going into 2026. So could we at least agree, though? I mean, he's not completely lost his mind by saying that. If you just said from your own perspective, you said Alabama could go 9-3 this year, and you wouldn't be mad at it. Same thing I've said. I can see that happening. I'm not mad at it. I understand how college football is, right? We're not living in 2014, 2015, 2016 anymore. But technically, isn't that stock down? Because we went 10-2 last season and made it to the SEC championship game and the playoffs. If you go 9-3, which you just said is a possibility, so you're at least leaving the door open for it. And you've also mentioned on this show that if you go 9-3, you're probably not going to be in the college football playoffs.
All right.
So technically, he's not wrong with what he's saying. If we're all in agreement here with what we just talked about, right? I mean, what do you think about that?
He did not explain what he means by stock down, stock up.
I agree with you on that. We agree.
I never said to you that I thought this was a national title team. I never thought they were a national title team. I said, hey, because I look at it realistically, can you go 9-3, show some improvement? I think that will be fine. That could be a stock up type of thing because you got young guys coming in. I think if you were the veteran team and you took that step, that would be a real problem.
So you're saying the expectations changes it. You're saying because excuse me, it's a youthful team. Anybody with realistic expectations for where we sit as a roster and all the new pieces and the new faces, that's kind of expected. So you're saying that's not necessarily stock down in Europe. Okay, so so it sounds like it boils down to your criteria in the expectations. And okay, so that's fair, and I agree with you that depending on what he was getting at, which what threw me off is when he said, when I think of the SEC, I think of Georgia and Texas, I don't think of Alabama. That's taking it a step further than just saying, they have a lot of youth on the team. I expect them to have some growing pains. There could be some issues that they face, some challenges coming up. That's one thing. But when he made it seem like Alabama is irrelevant in the conference, coming out of an SEC championship game appearance and a college football playoff appearance, that's where he lost me. And I think that's probably what really lost all the fans. So that makes more sense now that you elaborated on your point there. Because the way I was looking at it was, I'm like, I almost feel a little hypocritical, Smitty, because I'm like, I've talked about, just like you just said on the show, I think there is a possibility you're looking at a little bit more of a 9-3 type year. Not saying it can't be another 10-2 year. I definitely think that could happen if they play their cards right and guys develop in a quick way. These coaches come in, they make a big difference. You adjust the scheme a little bit offensively. I think that's a big one too. But that said, I was like, man, I feel a little hypocritical because I'm like, I can't talk about some of the challenges I think that we'll probably face, and it could be a little bit of a 9-3 situation, and then be mad at somebody for saying stock down, because technically that's going from 10-2 to 9-3 is going down. So
Yeah,
but
yeah. I'll say this before I run. Thanks for taking my call. I'll make
bro.
these quick things. I remember all those Bama fans got mad about not getting Cam Coleman. And Bill Walsh said a long time ago, wide receiver is the last position group you fix. And I still say he ain't $2 million better than any receiver we have on this roster. Just being real. Jeremiah Smith, I will open the bag for that. Okay, I think he's a generational talent. But you still have good guys. Yeah. But that guy, but you don't have that many guys walking around at receiver. That's why if you're a bad team, you don't pick a receiver early. You build your rest of the team. But I'll take this question off the air, maybe for the fans. When people talk run game coordinator, pass game coordinator, can you explain to them what those titles actually mean and what they do? But hey, thank you for taking my call. You have a good one, Christian.
Yeah, you too, brother. Yeah, that's a good question. We'll definitely talk about it. Let's hit this timeout a little early, Reed, because I know we got David, who's a new caller. We got Digger, who is a Texas fan who really wants to respond to Smitty. So I want to make sure we have enough room for all that, and we will, as long as we get to our timeout right now, right here at the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll hear some other perspectives from some other callers right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
All right, let's pull this up real quick. We got our guy Adam. We got to get his read ready. Arch has had his share of issues, but I like that he's putting in the work and improving, not playing the NIL games. I think he gave some money back. Almost like, I mean, this is like literally another pro league. I mean, it's almost like the quarterbacks doing the league that way they can, what's it called? Have more of a salary cap space, right? He seems like I'll say this, man. I know Arch catches a lot of heat, and I get it. When you have all that attention on you, when the spotlight's on you, when people have been deeming you the future number one pick since you were 17 and all this stuff, I would say this. I think at the end of the day, man, he handles himself well, and I think he'll end up being a good player. I know he's put in the work, and he's doing a lot of the necessary things, I'd imagine. At least it seems like it, but I don't think he's quite there where a lot of people do think he is, but all right, let's see. Manning passing academy. Yeah, I can't remember what league he played in. I think out of high school though, he played in a small league, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. I think he'll be a good player, but he definitely has a lot of hype to him. I will say that. Klatt's name has come up because of his negative comments. His marketing team has caused controversy and clicks, right, wrong, or respective. For this time of year, someone is talking about him. I mean, I will say this. I mean, I know there's definitely probably part of. I'll say I don't think people necessarily, and some people do. I don't think he would. I mean, because he's got a national platform. I don't think he would just go and strategically do it just to, bash Alabama like that. But I do know he probably expects to get a reaction for sure, though. So he leans into it more. Like, I think he believes what he's saying, but I think he leans into it more for sure, knowing that the reaction that it's going to get. Haven't heard from Tommy in a while. Where's he been? I'm not sure, man. I'm sure he's doing good. I know sometimes, man, we in this, a lot of it's on me, man. We talk so much and have so much going on that unfortunately sometimes we got to wait on the phone lines for a while. So I wouldn't be shocked if, he kind of was like, man, it's just hard to get on the phone line. So maybe that's kind of deterred him from calling as much. I think he's good though. I mean, maybe you need to follow up with him and check on him. All right, let's see. We got to go to the phone line. So we got a new caller. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. All right, let's go jump straight to the phone line so we have plenty of time, 205-342-9904. We got a new caller in David, but first, let me remind you about our friends over at Lamparello Law Education and Advocacy, founded by our friend and attorney and professor Adam Lamparello, who works with high school, college, and graduate students on academic and career success, providing mentoring, exam, and test-taking preparation, subject matter mastery, application strategy, personal statements, resumes, and long-term academic and professional planning. Adam also provides legal representation for students, faculty, and athletes in academic misconduct matters, First Amendment cases, name, image, and likeness issues, and all criminal defense matters. Known for representing his clients with genuine care, passion, and relentless advocacy. If you guys want serious guidance and strong representation from someone who truly has your back, contact Lamparello Law, 201-317-5115, or visit their website, which should be launched very, very soon, lamparello-law.com, for more information. Again, they are the official representation of us here on the Miller's Edge, and we will be joined by Adam on Thursday to talk some football. Again, that is Lamparello Law Education and Advocacy. All right, we got David on the phone lines for the first time. David, welcome in.
Hey, thanks. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama, Christian, from 86 to 89. I got my doctorate in music there. I've been up in Pennsylvania here teaching at a college for 34 years, and I just retired. I like the show so much. First caller. I just have a question for you, trying to get your perspective here. Sure. My question is this. I wrote it down so that I try to get it exactly right. But, with money taking a more prominent place with the NIL, I've just seen it increasing. I'm wondering about the development. I'm really wondering about the development of character and just being great human beings, taking a backseat to less important things like money, and how that's going to affect the college game, how it's going to affect how these guys, when they get away from football, prioritize their important life issues as opposed to things that's really at the end of I'm 67 that really don't matter that much. I don't have a perspective on that because I haven't been in it, but I'm a big Tide fan, and I'm wondering your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's so many different ways to look at it, because while there are a lot of negatives that we all can come up with when we think about it, and rightfully so, I can also see a lot of positives. For example, I mean, these guys have an opportunity to make some, not everybody's going to make life-changing money at the college ranks. I want to be clear. It's not everybody that's making that type of money, but as this thing progresses, the salary cap, or what they call revenue share cap, is now increasing from 20.5 to like 21 point something. So as you can imagine, the market's going to continue to go up. And really at this point, man, if you play, a position that has value, like we just talked about with offensive linemen, I mean, you really do have the opportunity to transfer and go make $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 or more. And the reality is, if you make even that much while you're in college, if you manage it correctly and you put it away, and you have a huge head start on a lot of people, regardless if you go on to play in the professional ranks or not. So that is big. And then it also teaches you at a young age that type of management, how to be a professional, right? Operating like that as a businessman at the age of 17, 18, 19 years old. So there are a lot of positives, but to your point, there are some negatives. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel like there's been a shift in just the mentality of some of the guys. I'm not saying everybody. I think we have a lot of good players in Tuscaloosa. I know a lot of guys that chose to come here, probably could have gone to a place like Oregon, Ohio State, or Texas and made even more money. But the reality is, I mean, they opted to come to Tuscaloosa, probably making a little bit less money, but they wanted to invest in themselves and their future and play at this great university. So I think the biggest challenge is these guys have to learn at a young age how to manage not only all the money that they're finding themselves with, but also really just how to go about themselves. I mean, you got the transfer portal, you got all these NIL opportunities. When we didn't have to worry about all that. So it was for us. Our goal was we just wanted to make it to the next level, so we could finally get compensated, so we could live out our dream of playing at the next level. And I just feel like what comes with a lot of what's going on right now is a lot of distractions, and it's not even on all of the players. I mean, think about all the people in their corners now that are going to be influencing them, that are going to be, the agents, the parents, the coaches that act as representatives, all these people that they want to get their own hands in the pot for themselves for personal reasons. And unfortunately, it ends up, putting the kid in tough situations. There's a lot of kids that don't necessarily want to transfer, but they have a lot of pressure from whether it's their parents, agents, or other people that are saying, hey, man, like, you had a good season. If you go here, they're offering you this much money. Why would you sit here and play here? But the kid doesn't want to leave his teammates or the legacy behind. And you talked about having something meaningful. That is something important, because a lot of guys that play at a number of schools, they're not going to have that same, ability just to go back and have like reunions and things like that. I mean, I hate to use Isaiah Bond for an example, but, he established himself in Alabama history and Alabama lore with the Gravedigger play. And I mean, that would have been a Daniel Moore prank for years on years and signings and all those things. But, because he elected to transfer to Texas, which is, his own right, nobody's saying he couldn't, but that kind of disrupted those things. I don't think he necessarily would feel the most comfortable coming back here for a reunion in Tuscaloosa. So, it's tough, but it's the world that we live in now, and you can only just adjust and adapt to it the best that you can. But believe me, there are still some good young men out there that, even though they're distracted, and there's a lot of things going on, there's still some guys that are very passionate, take it serious, and they go about it the right way. So you just got to hope you can find as many of those guys as you can.
I think you're right. I think we're living in an age of expressive individualism, and to me, that can't come back and bite you, because I think what happens is we're centering more and more on ourselves instead of reaching out and washing feet, which I think really is a character issue. And a delightful person to be around is a person that's not obsessed with himself, in my opinion, but that thinks, like in Philippians 2, more highly of others than they do themselves. So I just wondered where this was going, and I certainly don't know, my first call, much about it at all. I appreciate your taking my call, Christian.
Of course. I'm glad you called, and great to meet you. Thank you for the compliments. And yeah, look forward to talking soon again, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you have a great show. You really do a great job. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Take care, David. Good stuff. Digger, I hate to leave you stranded on there, but we do have to get out of here. And I promise you call back tomorrow. I'll take your call. I'd love to hear your response to everything we said. But big shout out to Reed and Chase behind the glass. All of our listeners, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC over on YouTube and Facebook on our streams. And we look forward to doing it all again tomorrow. Same place, same time, right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC.